Hi, this is Chris Legaspi, and today I'll be doing some critiques of student work that was posted on the New Masters Academy forum. So during this period of hardship and difficulty during COVID-19, New Masters has decided to help support the art community and art students by making their beginner course free, and also they're also offering free critiques. So if you'd like to have your work reviewed, all you have to do is go to their forum, community forum at NMA.art. And you don't have to be a member, you don't have to be a subscriber. The forum is completely free, so you can share your work there. And if you've already in the forum and you're waiting to get your work critiqued, please add value first and help us by critiquing the work of others. So I really appreciate what New Masters is doing. And if you're an art student, I know some of you are at home, unable to go to class. Maybe your class has been canceled. So if you're an art student or you're an educator, reach out to your school and have them contact New Masters, and New Masters would be able to support them in any way. Already some of the top schools in the nation have partnered with New Masters. They've opened school accounts, so they're helping to support students as best as possible during this period of difficulty. And that's what some of the instructors are doing as well, is to volunteer their time to help give you some feedback on your work. So that's what we're doing today. So don't forget, if you want to have your work reviewed, it's NMA.art. So enjoy these critiques, and be safe, be healthy, and take care. Okay, this first set of gesture drawings is quite wonderful. Right away, I like the sense of gesture, the movement, the rhythms are all working really well. You even do, well, one of the things that Steve Houston talks about is relating things. Gesture is relationship. These parts relate very well together, so that's wonderful. I mean, maybe my main comment would be to incorporate some more plain language. So what does that mean? More plainer language. So for example, and you clearly understand the concepts. It's just that that's your next stage. So I think definitely ready to evolve to the next stage and be uh, more planes, more three-dimensional quality form drawing. So things like this corner, hinting at the under plane of the rib. More of these beautiful intersections and these pinching areas that Steve likes to. That's what I would suggest for you, is to incorporate more of these into your drawing, and also it'll help you get more of that 3D look. These ideas of interlocks and overlaps. Little areas of overlap, 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 intersection, overlap. I think that's what's missing. It'll add that structure, because what's working is your drawings do this really well. They kind of do this well. They go from here to here, which is great, what you want. And in a two-dimensional sense, that's wonderful. That's exactly what you want. But what is missing is kind of this idea, the over the form movement, over the form. And I think you know it, you understand it. But I'm just going to show you some ways that might incorporate it. And once you get that, you'll be rocking and rolling. Like, for example, this arm. there. And then you see how I exaggerate the that pinch, stretch, overlap. So that's really the key. All right, hope that's helpful. Wonderful gesture drawings. Yeah, I think the next stage would be to draw some structure. I learned by copying Steve Houston quite a bit. I was fortunate enough to see him draw in person, but on NMA you can. I would just kind of look at his work as much as possible and try to copy, emulate some of the things that he's doing. Especially this idea of the overlaps and ways to carry the gesture over the form, over the form, over the form, over the form. All right, thank you. Okay, we have some wonderful drawings here, a lot of torsos. I like to see that. And first impression is that you have a good understanding of a lot of the concepts. Looks like your anatomy is working really well. I think one thing that's missing is kind of the relationship, the rhythms from one form to the other. That would help, and the way that kind of the abdomen and the rib cage, that read is kind of missing. So let's grab this torso, for example. So you have the box, which is great. So I always talk about this. I learned it from all the other great artists that came before me. So you have that box. Now, I think you understand the concept of the rib. I think it's just getting it to read properly. And I'm not quite sure where this reference is coming from. One thing you could do right away is to exaggerate that. And there would be some serratus in here. Also, so kind of soften this side, but then crunch up or bunch up this side. That'd be something you can do. Same with this torso here. Let me just kind of draw over this one. That's one thing that I just feel is kind of missing, or is there's a gap in your understanding. Is that how the rib cage kind of looks and fits in, especially the opening part there. That's something I would do. And as far as your little tonals, I think right away the core shadow can be softened. That's really the main thing I would do. And, I do these myself, draw in pen. I really enjoy it. So that's something you could do right there is either take a pencil or just take your pen and kind of like that soften these strokes if you can do it with hatching. Takes a little bit more skill to do, but you have it. And also I would, this kind of crossing is a little distracting. I would kind of, make it uniform. One direction kind of hatching for now. Even that, I'm not too, because you kind of want your tone to be nice and flat and even as much as possible. All right, so wonderful drawings. I think the main thing is kind of revisit your understanding of the rib cage, specifically how the rib cage transitions into the abdomen right here, and that'll really, I would do skeleton studies. That'll really improve your understanding and the way you draw the torso next time. Thank you. Okay, we have a wonderful figure drawing here, and I like the things that are working is I like how you're planning out the perspective. I think that's wonderful. And the perspective of the head is reading really, really well. One thing, the first thing that comes to mind is the proportion and the structures of the back. Structures of the back and the way the transition from the hip to the leg. So let's address that. So it's an anatomical thing. I think that doesn't hurt to always brush up on your anatomy. And I learned anatomy just by looking at medical drawings and just copying them. Really, I think anatomy is one of those things where you kind of have to approach it like a medical student. Just memorize a bunch of things and understand what they look like and how they work. So I know that there's a big mass of muscle and bone here. So I would, and then that leads to the rib cage. So just a little bit more mass up here. These muscles are quite heavy and thick. And I'm not a anatomist by any means. More of a it's a topic that's just curious and fascinating for me. So, but luckily I have friends who are, so I just asked them for advice. Now, as far as the hips go, let me, so I have to draw. This is how I find my proportion. The proportion is a little bit, okay, so now I know that abdomen is here. Right, the pelvis kind of looks like that. So now the glutes here and the bottom of the thigh should be here. That's what was missing there, that transition. So that's all I would do. The upper thigh was just a little too thick, even on models who do have a lot of, they have a lot of meat here. They kind of wouldn't taper that much to the knee. So I would even here, this kind of takes away from the drawing, all this crunchiness. Not quite sure what's going on there. So it's better to make it clean and elegant, especially on a woman. Yeah, so that's really about it. I think the proportion, the I think the proportion um, could be adjusted, specifically the length of the rib cage and the thickness of the upper back. That's also proportion and anatomy. Okay, thank you for the wonderful drawing. Okay, here we have a wonderful little study. So I'm assuming that this is still a work in progress. So I'm just going to give you some feedback on the head. Right away, the drawing and execution is very, very nice. What I like most is the emotional quality. There's a lot of personality in life. It's very difficult to do. So I think you captured that. I'm not sure if you know this person, but I feel like I feel a lot of care. Someone that you may know. I could be wrong, maybe, but anyway, there's feeling, and that's the goal of art is to trigger emotions. So let's just talk about some technique. I think right away, and I love your range of values. Right away as a structural idea, structural draftsman, I need to see this corner. I need to know where this corner is. So what I would do is add some tone here, and this is going to be really subtle. And it's easy for me to do, in the computer. Very difficult to do in real life and traditional medium. So, easy to say, hard to do. I want to see this corner of the front plane. So I would just put down some more tone. Like I know you're probably still working on it. You see that, very subtle, and you would have to darken these other tones. I'm not quite 100% sure where the light's coming from. It looks like it's maybe multiple light sources. I'm not quite sure, but get the plane of the eye to read a little bit more. And it's also there's a danger when drawing eyes to draw lines and outline. So it's looking very outliney right now, but that's eyes are in my opinion, they're best drawn kind of this mysterious shapes and planes. Get the shape and the plane to read, meaning the plane. I'll draw the plane in a minute. Get the plane to read, drop in a value that's pretty close, and then do that. The planes and the forms, which is under plane of it's a socket. And it's a socket first. It's a sphere sitting in a socket. So get that to read. Socket with a sphere. And once you get that to read, that's like 80% of the work. And the eye will kind of read naturally by itself. So without having to see the reference, I kind of need to see what you're looking at here so I know exactly where your light source is. I'm just going to assume it's upper left. Upper right. But I need to see this corner. I need to see that corner. That's the draftsman in me is like, I need to see that corner. Otherwise, it's just kind of flat. See, it's kind of flat. There's a corner there where it changes direction from front plane to side plane, transitions. I need to see where this cheek goes from top plane to the side plane of the underplane of the cheek. You know what I mean? Show me that plane. Take me on that journey, and I will be your friend. You know what I mean? Take me on that journey. I think, let me flip it. I would check in a mirror also as much as possible. And also, it looks like you're working either graphite or colored pencil, or maybe Conte. I'm not quite sure. But I think this paper is kind of working against you. It's very toothy and grainy. If you're going to use this material again, I would maybe try it with um, smoother paper, like a Bristol. But yeah, wonderful drawing so far. Looking forward to seeing what you do with it. Okay, it looks like we have a bust study. I'm not sure if it's a bust, a plaster cast, or a statue. But the first thing I noticed right away is the wonderful draftsmanship in terms of it has a very nice structural feel, has a very nice proportionally, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the lips, the forehead, all reading really well. I think for me, the first thing that pops out that can be improved would be well, number one, I would say the technique, because I think, and this, this is minor, because it's so well drawn. I feel like um, the technique takes away. It's kind of like the marks. They're a little bit rough, and they draw a lot of attention because they're so rough. So I would just clean up my marks, really. See, right away that gives you a little bit more attention to the face. Maybe continue to drop a tone. Second thing is work to establish the planar identification, meaning like where is the light source, and really, I guess it's a contrast thing to really let these planes shine. They'll just add a little more contrast and a little more plain definition. That's the term I'm looking for. Planar definition. So you see that right away. One obvious place too is this front plane, I think, of the bust. Just that alone. The front plane of this bust, just that alone works really nice. And just clean up this tone here, because the problem is the technique on the outside, right? It only works if the technique on the outside only works if the technique on the inside is clean and smooth and polished. Right now it's just kind of a little bit kind of rough all over. So I would just kind of, it's like, for example, this top plane is drawing way too much attention. So just clean that up, knock those tones down. This area is drawing way too much attention. Clean that up, knock it down. smooth out the technique, the marks, less of those marks on the outside. I mean, there's a time and place for that. I think, I definitely don't want to discourage you from being expressive. There's a time and a place for it, but here, it's definitely taking away. And then the last thing is, show me where this corner is, similar to that last comment I made. Show me where this corner is. I want to see this corner. I really enjoy seeing that. It gives me that front plane, maybe define this ear as well. That's really the main comment. It's a structural thing, it's a planar thing, and it's a technique thing. Kind of make everything so clean so that their eye directly goes to where you want it, which is the face. Because right now, my eye goes right here. And I don't think you want that. My eye goes right here. And that's a shame because there's so much beautiful stuff happening here. Right? So this is the first read, and I don't think you want that. So let's just do that. Clean up the technique, define the planes a little bit more. And then really start to make, and also kind of define the light source as well. All right, so yeah, wonderful job there. Thank you. All right, we have some wonderful, looks like sketchbook studies here. So right away, this artist looks like they have a clear understanding of lighting, edge, value control. Is very, very nice. I mean, I think we could all agree this is a wonderful page of drawings. Wonderful indeed. The first two comments that come to mind is I think in general, the first thing that comes to mind is that this artist feels, in my mind, feels like they're quite advanced and they're ready for a longer, more polished, more challenging drawing. So that's right away I would do that. Maybe these look like they took a few hours in your sketchbook. Maybe do one on proper paper. Do a drawing on proper paper and maybe spend a few weeks on it. 30, 40 hours, something like that. Really challenge yourself to do like a more ambitious finished drawing. I think that's clearly where you're at, in my opinion, because you have a clear understanding of the basics. That's for sure. But if I were to give you something that might be useful is, I think proportionately, some things can be improved. So for example, let's start with this. I would consider because it looks like you can be, I guess more realistic, but you're choosing to add your own stylistic choices and flavor, and in my mind, it looks like you're making these proportion decisions. You're consciously doing this, and that's great. So forgive me if that's the case in that case. Because what I'm saying is, let's bring these proportions back to more naturalistic, more accurate, I guess. Not that it matters. I think you can clearly do that. See, for example, this scapula just feels a little bit shrunken. The scapular region, this deltoid, just needs to be a little bit thicker, meatier. Needs to be taller. That's all. It just needs to be taller. expanded. It just feels squashed and compressed, way too short. Proportion needs to be longer, I guess, for lack of a better word. That scapular area, and also the legs. The legs feel also squished, so I would tend to elongate things. Like, for example, these have near perfect proportions, in my opinion. Torso-wise, these are fantastic. These two figures. Let's go for one more here. This one as well feels very squished, very compressed. So that's potentially the only thing I would change. Where can I put this? There. I think that helps. Okay. Okay, so for this one, I would also elongate the torso here. It just, again, feels very squished. That's really it. I mean, I think you know, my guess is that that was a conscious choice to make the proportions feel that way to you, that looked beautiful. Maybe you were trying to say something, and you would not be wrong. That in your as your own work of art, your own expression. To me, if you have the understanding and the fundamentals and the basics, those communicate well, which you do. You communicate form, you communicate light. That's for me, that's job number one. The rest is communicating what's important to you, your own personal bias. So that's all I would, if I could add anything to your drawing here and be helpful, that's what I would say. Just be mindful of these proportions. It looks like your scapulas and upper backs tend to be a little bit more compressed than they should be, so I would elongate them. And try an ambitious drawing. Maybe spend 20, 30, 40 hour drawing on proper paper, like an 18 by 24. Proper paper. This looks like ordinary sketchbook paper. Do a finished charcoal, and I would love to see that in the forum. So thank you. Wonderful drawings. Okay, here we have a wonderful illustration or digital rendering. So right away, the first thing that I notice is the draftsmanship and the attention to detail. This figure is incredible. I mean, obviously the way the legs shine through the fabric, it's incredible. And this bow, this hand, that's all wonderful. So as an artist, my first instinct as an artist is to design. Especially my current career, I was also a video game concept art illustrator person for 6 years. So I'm familiar with digital art, and recently I moved into movie poster work. So I am a draftsman. I'm a figure painter, but I am, at my core, I'm a designer. So why I say that's important is because I have seen this many times in my career. I've seen wonderful digital illustrations, wonderful technique, wonderful detail, but lacking in design. Oh, I don't want to say lacking, but design, I think the design can have some thought into it. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at this as a tonal design. So I'm going to shrink it down. So I think there are some things working, some things that I think aren't clear. And really, for me, the goal is the clarity. So right when we see this zoomed out, what are we looking at here? And at first glance, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's a figure. I see kind of legs, and that's not good enough. For me as a designer, I need to know right away. You know, you want to get that clear, that clarity, that clear read. What can we do? What can we do? Well, let's look at the tone and then the shape. If we get those two things right, the edges and the details will really take care of themselves. Let's look at the tone and the shape. So I'm just going to do a quick thumbnail. And I think as someone who wants to design an image, I would want this read. Figure window. I would want that read. Figure wall. You know, regardless of what kind of figure it is. Figure wall. Figure wall, and possibly if the wall is, you know, important to you. And maybe do something like that. Figure touching a wall. And, you know, I'm just kind of making this up on the fly as I go. You know, even that, need that little layer. You know, even that kind of works. That works better, I think. So does that make sense? See this read, right? When I zoom it out, it has beautiful clarity. Beautiful clarity. That's what I want. And let's compare. So figure, wall, ground plane, window, or some other plane. Right? That's the goal. So let's take your image and turn it. Let's see if we can work to make the tonal composition better. I'm going to knock it down first. Let's forget about color and detail right now. I think that is the least of our concern. Because if this isn't working, then nothing we put on top, you know, the audience won't care. Audience won't care because they will already have moved past your image. So that's not good. Let's hook them in first. Let's give them a reason to invest in our work, and then we'll keep them there with our detail and our stories. Okay, so right away, I think that works a lot better. Number one. And then let's say that okay, number two. And these dots are I think they take away too. I think in general, a vignette might serve this character better. Some kind of vignette. And then your city details can go here. Whatever you decide can go there, and then, let's bring this down here. Yeah, I taught at a school called NMA.art for many, many years. Well, like 3. I taught character design, digital painting, and NMA.art's an entertainment school in Hollywood. And as a teacher, I try to impart the importance of design. I wasn't always successful because design's not sexy. It's not sexy. Rendering is sexy, and right, materials are sexy, and color is sexy, but colors also has a design problem. And then let's shine our light, our brightest light, whatever that may be. And maybe let's have some so let's design our lights so maybe they can point that way. That's one idea. Let's do that. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. Design your lights, design your details. I think that's better. That's just one way to go. It's one way to go. And the beauty about this, when you go a little bit darker now you can play with color and saturation in the shadow. If that was something you would choose to do. So now, we got a little bit of a better read. Figure. I might even push this window back like that. Just so I know. Okay, we got a window, and we got a so really this is a wonderful rendering, but what I would suggest is to think of the design first and first and last. Get the design to work. Spend more time on the design, especially the tonal design, and then everything else will fall into place. All right, thank you. Okay, here we have a wonderful still life. So, similar to my last comment about the previous digital painting illustration, let's look at the design. Now, right away, I think we could all tell that the thing that's working is the draftsmanship. So wonderful drawing. The paint technique is very nice. And I think the tonal composition works to some extent. But let's see if we can make it better. I think right away, as a designer, this feels a little too even in distribution of scale. Now, what do I mean by that? I feel like you have this, we have a ground plane, you have this thing, and then you have two things, but they kind of make this kind of thing. kind of a rectangle, and it's very, it's too even, too symmetrical. Let's see if we can bring some asymmetry out. How can we do that? Well, I think, first of all, I would potentially overlap this thing. It just feels like it's kind of, I think there's a little overlap there, but I would potentially do that. See, right away, I think that's working a little better. And then maybe let's get 3 leaves instead of just, okay, well, yeah, you do have 3 leaves there. 3 leaves, 1 stem with 3 mini stems, maybe, it might be worth it. And then let's get one more element that brings us back, maybe not that bright. Yeah, we need something that does this. So I would maybe put a leaf here. Maybe put a leaf. There you go. That's working. So now we'll kind of do that, and then maybe put a little highlight on this table. I don't know. Might be worth exploring. Something like that to bring us back around. So right now it's a little, the movement is kind of a little too horizontal. So I would want this kind of movement around. So you need something maybe here or something maybe here to bring us back to this little leaf. That's what I would like to see. And then this shape, maybe something that does this. Not quite sure if you have something in this area already in mind, but something in the technique that does, in the background, that does that. Not literally that, but suggested, indicated, hinted. Again, that's just another compositional device. Because composition and tonal design is really where it's at in terms of how attractive and compelling your picture is. Because if that's not working, right? Does that make sense? So something that kind of does that. Okay, so let's go back. And then my second comment is the color. Now, I would like to see more blue. Right now, and actually more complements in general. So, for example, these oranges feel very monochrome, like yellow, yellow, yellow. Even the thing is yellow, the shadow is yellow. So that's not. I mean, that might be how it appeared, but I think in general, we want to go cooler. So that could mean more gray. In this case, more of a green gray, so push that, you know. Let's see how far we can push that. Does that make sense? And I mean, can even just do this. Let's put a wash of blue down here. See, right away, I think that adds a lot to it. It's just too brown and orange. It needs cools. It desperately needs cools. Desperately needs cools. So I would find any way to add cools. It's a little too exaggerated, but you kind of get the idea. And same with this pot. The shadows need to have some. They need to have some blue in them. Oh, that looks terrible. Let's just get rid of that. It just desperately needs blue everywhere. And this pot could use some blue violet. Let's see if that works. I like that. See, I like that. That's working. See how nice that looks? And you could add, you know, it's too bright. You can sneak this blue in on the contour. This is something that Steve Houston taught me, and he got it from a few guys at Art Center do this. Sorrow is one that comes to mind. You know, find a way to add some blue in here, because this one thing this color desperately needs is blue. You see that? You just add blue at the contour. It's a quick and easy fix. That's a little too blue and artificial and fake looking. Let's see if we can knock that down. There you go. See right away it has more of that vibrancy, even this halftone. Let's see if we can make that more blue. It just desperately needs blue. Yeah, see how more vibrant that looks? That looks nice right there. I like that. So I hope that helps. I think it's a wonderful drawing. Maybe add some orange here. See that? Boom! Add a little bit more saturation from that orange peel there. I think that looks nice. Add some more Kind of feels like David Chivitz now with his intense reflected light. There you go. Just ways to add more flavor, more color, more saturation, more complements, right? Sneak in some complements, blue in the shadow. And that's really, color-wise, I think would help. But the main thing is let's get the tonal composition working first, not so symmetrical, and kind of put more eye flow in there. So, right, so thank you for this wonderful painting. Thank you, and look forward to seeing more of your work.